What is connected play? And really, you hear a lot of definitions out there. You know, a lot of people think it's IoT, or it's Bluetooth, and it's Wi-Fi, and it's really scary, and it's really dangerous. But it's really more than that. Really, our definition of connected play is a way that you interact with the physical and digital world. And there's loads of different technologies out there. So here are some a few. And actually, you know, this chart is something that will evolve. It's the connected play landscape. So starting from the top, we have IoT, AI, robots, AR, VR, EdTech, makers, wearables, social, again that NFC RFID, and then voice and sound. These are basically, as you can see, mapping the physical and digital world. So here's some really, really big numbers, and hopefully everybody in the room likes this chart, because if you're working in technology, you're working in connected play, or you're doing any kind of connected entertainment experience, these are really big numbers. So according to Juniper, as of last year, connected play was around a $6 billion opportunity. There's projected a 200% growth, so in 4 years, now we're in 2019, in 4 years, that's going to be estimated an $18 billion opportunity. So lots of opportunities for people creating, experimenting with these new technologies. Now what I'd like to do now is to invite some friends on stage. With your perspective, I mean, how do you see the landscape? You know, tell us a little bit, you know, one, having experience with working with those different technologies, and how you see the landscape in general.
I think right now, designing for kids is very interesting because you know that they can get there pretty quick, but there's some education as you look at getting the parents as a gatekeeper to know what they're getting and know what they're buying into and know that, you know, there's really a lot of depth to this play and it's beyond kind of a consumable product that they would expect in that aisle. So as we make these experiences, I think we have to be really choiceful on how we integrate them and if it really does bring something meaningful and not just, you know, an app for the sake of having an app or for a call out. But to me, there's a lot of checkpoints that you have to have in development of play testing and making sure that it's meaningful and it's giving value to the consumer. Because sometimes, you know, it's very alluring to have all this great tech and you want to put it out there and you want to get it in front of people, but you just always need to be testing, you know, is it worth the time and effort? Is it bringing something new? Is voice bringing something new to this board game, or is the kid just going to override it and disregard it in general? They're very easy to read, children, when they play. You can see it on their face. If they're not leaping for the experience and going crazy and fighting with their brother and sister, then you probably need to rework something.
And then Matthew, from your perspective, you know, at Nickelodeon, you guys have had a lot of first, right? You were like one of the first, if not the first, having Alexa skills back in 2017. You've had interactive TV, right? Going into esports. So could you share with us about, you know, how are you guys, you know, I guess there's a perception of big companies move slow, but clearly Nickelodeon isn't. So just kind of share with us, you know, about those opportunities and how they came about.
Well, I think, you know, for us as we look at new opportunities and try to decide what we want to go after, I think there are three things that are important. One is to just be attuned to the landscape, see what's going on, come to things like CES or South by, and really get a sense for the landscape. Second is to really begin to look at your customers and see how they are adapting and evolving to that technology. And then third, understanding what your capabilities are and how they apply to those first two things. So that's really the framework that we look at, and we use the Nickelodeon's mission to make the world a more playful place as a lens to begin to determine where we want to place some of our bets.
And then Silas, similarly, being first or one of the first. The first.
We'll take it. Yeah.
Okay. AR gaming robot. So, share with us, why an AR robot? Why gaming? Give us a little perspective there.
So it started with the robot, and well, obviously we live in a world where a lot of digital experiences are here. How do you compete with that? How do you create something that can rival those experiences or even be better than that? So again, when you have a physical robot, you have to carry it around and show it. I think that's the best way to get that across. So we started with this robot, and especially today, I think the physical experience, if you're going to compete, it needs to be unique. It needs to be amazing. So you really, really need to focus on that. So we started with the robot, so you've got a lot of character, a lot of personality built into it. The next thing, obviously, is the digital experience. So as this robot is turned on now, I can control it with my app on my smartphone. So what you'll see here is you know when I'm connected to it or when I get a valid connection. Because what will happen is the robot should do a little wave to everyone to say hello. Now, so this is a robot that's got personality and got character. If I touch it, if I interact with it, it will know. If I steal its shield, it will know that I've stolen its shield. And if I'm going to do something really terrible here, if I steal its leg, rip him apart and I put him back, it should know if the leg's working, be happy about it. And so, you have first of all, we're really focused on that physical experience. As I'm talking now, if I don't interact with it, it will eventually fall asleep. And just like, if you're falling asleep on the train or something, you might startle yourself back awake, or if it's really gentle and I kick it, it will startle itself to back to life as well. So we try and have a really great physical experience, and we built this as a platform. Next, then, you can't ignore the digital world. We went to the mobile phone. We wanted to allow people to control the robots using their smartphones or tablets to be able to have access to the digital world as well. So, and that's where augmented reality comes in, being able to extend that experience. What people can do with this robot is, you can play, you can battle with other people, or you can also learn to not only code with the robot, but also creative skills like stop motion animation. So if the robot is asleep, we can put it in a sleep state where you can move the legs and start to create your animations as well, and share that with other people online. So it's a platform in that sense, and that was what we wanted to do. How do we seamlessly integrate the physical plus virtual?
But speaking of education, I did want to jump in with Brett, because at Circuit Scribe, you guys work a lot with the schools, right? And bringing technology, and share with us a little bit about your partnerships or how you work with schools and kind of bringing that magical connected experience, not only to consumers, but to education.
Yeah, no, thank you. And exactly the same sort of verbiage I've heard, sort of to engage and inspire, is what we've seen a lot is STEM education is really picking up. I mean, that's a phrase that's used very commonly now. And a lot of times you'll see that there's sort of a level of, there's sort of a learning curve or a level of intimidation to a number of students to where you can't really engage the entire class a lot of times in these more engineering-based topics. And so what we wanted to do is to, being material scientists ourselves, is sort of reshape what we wish the tools that we had were when we were kids, sort of based on what we'd already played with and knew about. And so we sort of tried to wipe the slate clean and just said, well, hey, what if we just had a pen on a piece of paper? Nobody needs an instruction manual, and that way you can engage the entire classroom, and there's no, hey, how do I scribble on a piece of paper? Kids, when they're not doing what they should be in class, are already scribbling on a piece of paper anyways. So it allows them to, it allows you to engage in a classroom in such a way to where even students that may not be interested in a topic that's typically has a barrier of entry to it, to where now we sort of try to take that hurdle completely away. And so we started off at that baseline level of engaging with schools and with student groups. That really was inspired by our work with sort of maker groups and research groups even, of let's try to make a product as simple as possible to where it almost has a magical level of interaction. So when somebody writes with it and they put a battery to it and then an LED and then it first lights up, people are like, oh wow, this actually works. This does something more advanced than what I was expecting.
Well, it looks like we are almost out of time. All of us will be sort of back in the room if you want to hear more about what everybody's working on and maybe ways to collaborate together.